Most people believe the brain must feel ready before facing hard things. They wait for perfect energy, perfect mood, or perfect timing. But the truth is, the brain becomes ready only after starting. Action creates strength, not the other way around. Hard things shape the mind, not comfort. I have learned that real growth begins not when life feels easy, but when the mind is pushed to do what feels hard. When the choice is made to act without comfort, without excuses, without waiting for motivation, the brain adapts, strength develops, and lasting success is built. The mind that retreats from difficulty weakens. Your brain was designed for one purpose above all others: survival. Not excellence, not greatness, not the fulfillment of your potential. Survival. And survival, in its most primitive form, means avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and conserving energy at all costs. This is why you find yourself backing away from difficult tasks. This is why your mind creates elaborate justifications for why you should wait until tomorrow, next week, or next month. This is why you feel that familiar weight of dread when faced with something that demands real effort. But here lies the great deception. Your brain's survival instincts, once necessary for avoiding predators and finding food, now work against you in a world where your greatest threats are not physical dangers, but the soft, insidious comfort of mediocrity. Consider this truth: every person who has ever achieved anything of significance has had to override this basic programming. They have had to force their brain to do what it naturally resists. They have had to become the master of their own mind rather than its servant. The brain that seeks comfort will never build anything worth building. The mind that avoids strain will never develop strength. The person who honors every feeling of resistance will remain exactly where they are, watching life pass by while others claim the rewards that come only through deliberate difficulty. You must understand this fundamental reality: your brain will lie to you. It will tell you that you are too tired, too busy, too unprepared. It will manufacture reasons why today is not the right day, why this is not the right moment. It will present you with 1,000 small emergencies that seem more urgent than the important work you know you must do. This is not a flaw in your design. This is your design working exactly as intended. Your ancestors who conserved energy and avoided unnecessary risks were the ones who survived to pass on their genes. You carry within you the nervous system of a creature designed to do just enough to survive, nothing more. But you are no longer that creature. You live in a world where the greatest rewards go not to those who merely survive, but to those who learn to thrive through voluntary difficulty. You must reprogram what your brain considers dangerous. You must teach it that the real danger lies not in effort, but in the slow death of unrealized potential. Understanding your enemy is the first step toward defeating it. Mental resistance operates through predictable patterns, and once you recognize these patterns, you begin to see them not as insurmountable obstacles, but as mechanical responses that can be overcome. Your brain takes any challenging task and inflates its complexity, its duration, its potential for failure. A project that might take 2 hours becomes, in your mind, an overwhelming mountain of work. A conversation you need to have becomes an inevitable catastrophe. A skill you need to develop becomes an impossible challenge, requiring talents you do not possess. This magnification serves a purpose. It makes avoidance seem reasonable. If the task is truly as difficult as your mind makes it appear, then of course you should wait until you are better prepared, more motivated, more capable. The resistance wins by making the difficult seem impossible. While your brain inflates the difficulty of action, it simultaneously shrinks the cost of inaction. One more day of delay seems harmless. One more week of preparation seems wise. One more month of waiting for the right conditions seems prudent. Your brain cannot see the compound effect of these small delays. It cannot calculate the true cost of momentum lost, of skills not developed, of opportunities that pass by while you wait for perfect conditions that will never come. It sees only the immediate relief of not having to face discomfort today. Your brain, clever as it is, rarely suggests doing nothing. Instead, it offers you other tasks, easier tasks, tasks that feel productive but require no real effort or growth. You will find yourself compelled to organize your workspace, to research more about the topic, to have conversations about what you plan to do rather than doing it. These alternative activities serve a dual purpose. They provide the illusion of progress while ensuring that the difficult work remains undone. You can spend entire days being busy while accomplishing nothing of real importance. Your brain will generate feelings, anxiety, overwhelm, inadequacy, and then present these feelings as evidence of objective reality. Because you feel unprepared, it concludes you are unprepared. Because you feel anxious, it decides the task is too risky. Because you feel overwhelmed, it determines the challenge is beyond your capabilities. But feelings are not facts. They are simply chemical reactions designed to influence your behavior. They carry no more objective truth about your capabilities than the weather carries about your character. Yet your brain treats them as infallible guides, allowing momentary emotions to override long-term commitments and rational decisions. The space between thought and action is where dreams go to die. In that pause, that moment of hesitation, resistance plants its seeds and grows into paralysis. The master of mental discipline understands this and eliminates the space entirely. When you recognize what must be done, you must move immediately. Not after you feel ready, not after you have prepared more thoroughly, not after the conditions become more favorable. Now, in this moment, before your brain has time to construct its elaborate defense systems, this is not about being reckless or unprepared. This is about understanding that preparation can become its own form of procrastination. You can research forever, plan endlessly, wait eternally for the perfect moment that exists only in imagination. Meanwhile, those who act with imperfect preparation are building skills, gaining experience, making progress. The discipline of immediate action requires you to honor your decisions over your feelings. When you decide to do something difficult, that decision was made by your highest self, your rational mind, your long-term thinking. The feelings that arise later, the reluctance, the anxiety, the desire to postpone, come from a different part of your mind, a part concerned only with immediate comfort. You must learn to distinguish between these two voices and consistently choose the voice of your decision over the voice of your comfort. This is not natural. This requires practice. This demands that you override thousands of years of evolutionary programming every single time. Start with the smallest possible action. If you must write, open the document. If you must exercise, put on your training clothes. If you must have a difficult conversation, pick up the telephone. Do not think about the entire task. Think only about the first step and take it immediately. The brain that learns to move without hesitation on small things will eventually move without hesitation on large things. The person who can force themselves to take immediate action on simple tasks is developing the neural pathways that will serve them when the stakes are higher and the resistance is stronger. This immediate action must be practiced daily on tasks both significant and trivial. Every time you honor a commitment to yourself, without negotiation, without delay, without excuse, you are building the mental strength that will serve you when facing the most important challenges of your life. Making choices takes energy, and energy runs out. Every time you must choose whether to do the hard thing, you are taking from a limited well of willpower. This is why counting on feeling excited and making choices in the moment is a plan that will fail. The answer is to remove choices completely by making planned patterns. You choose once fully, and then you follow through without thinking. You stop the daily argument with yourself about whether today is the day to do the hard work. A pattern is different from a goal. A goal says, I will write a book. A pattern says, I will write for 1 hour every morning at 6 o'clock, no matter how I feel, what happened yesterday, or what duties wait for me. The goal depends on staying excited. The pattern works without excitement. Your patterns must be clear, timed, and firm. I will exercise often is not a pattern, it is a hope. I will train for 30 minutes every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 700 in the morning is a pattern. The clearness removes choice making. The timing creates automatic action. The firm nature removes the option to argue with yourself. The strongest patterns are those that use your surroundings. If you must write, you prepare your workspace the night before. If you must exercise, you lay out your training clothes. If you must study, you remove all distractions and place only the needed materials within reach. You make the hard thing easier to do, and the easy choices harder to reach. Your mind will test these patterns without mercy. It will offer good reasons why today should be different. It will create situations that seem to justify waiting. It will make emergencies that feel more urgent than your planned duties. This is not a sign that your pattern is broken. This is a sign that your pattern is working because it is forcing your mind to face its own resistance. The power of a pattern is measured not by how perfectly you follow it on your best days, but by how steadily you keep it on your worst days. Anyone can follow their plan when they feel excited, when conditions are perfect, when energy is high. The master follows their plan especially when they feel terrible, when conditions are messy, when energy is gone. This is why successful people seem to live boring lives. They wake at the same time, eat similar meals, follow the same routines. This is not because they lack imagination. It is because they understand that freedom comes through structure, not despite it. When the important things happen automatically, energy is freed for creativity and spontaneous joy. Your mind will rebel against this structure. It will tell you that routines are limiting, that you are becoming a machine, that life should be more flexible and fun. These thoughts are the voice of the part of you that wants to stay comfortable, that fears the effort required to grow. Ignore these thoughts. They are not wisdom. They are resistance, wearing the mask of wisdom. True freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want in the moment. True freedom is the ability to consistently do what serves your long-term interests, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Building strong patterns takes time and patience. Start small and be consistent, rather than starting big and failing. If you want to read more, commit to reading 1 page per day, not 1 hour. If you want to exercise more, commit to 5 minutes per day, not 60. If you want to write more, commit to writing 1 sentence per day, not 1,000 words. The size of the action matters less than the consistency of the action. Small actions done daily become powerful habits. Large actions done occasionally become burdens that you eventually abandon. Your environment will either support or sabotage your patterns. Design your surroundings to make good choices easier and bad choices harder. If you want to eat better, fill your kitchen with healthy food and remove the unhealthy options. If you want to read more, place books where you can see them and put distracting items out of sight. Remember that every pattern you build makes the next pattern easier to build. Each time you prove to yourself that you can stick to a commitment, you increase your confidence in your ability to stick to future commitments. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen the part of yourself that chooses discipline. The person you become through following good patterns is more valuable than any single achievement the patterns might create. The discipline required to write every day is more precious than any book you might write. The strength required to exercise consistently is more valuable than any physical fitness you might achieve. The focus required to study regularly is more important than any knowledge you might gain. Patterns are not prisons. They are the foundation of freedom. They free you from the tyranny of mood, from the exhaustion of constant choice making, from the disappointment of broken promises to yourself. They transform you from someone who wants to change into someone who actually changes. Start today. Choose one important area of your life. Create one simple, clear, time pattern. Follow it regardless of how you feel. Watch as this single pattern begins to change not just what you do, but who you are. Ease is the enemy of improvement, yet your whole body is built to seek ease and run from hardship. This creates a basic problem. Everything worth gaining requires you to become at peace with being uneasy. Most people treat hardship as a sign to quit. They feel the mental tiredness of hard work and think this means they are doing something wrong. They feel the body pain of effort and decide they are pushing too much. They meet emotional trouble and think they are not made for such tests. This thinking is wrong. Hardship is not a warning. It is a growing sign. It shows that you are working beyond your present ability, which is the only way ability grows. The muscle that never feels strain never grows stronger. The mind that never meets trouble never builds toughness. You must train your hardship acceptance on purpose and step by step. This means often putting yourself in places that feel hard, uneasy, or testing, not because you like these feelings, but because you know their worth in building mental strength. Begin with small hardships and build carefully. Take cold baths when you want warm ones. Sit quietly when your mind wants to wander. Move your body when it wants to rest. Have hard talks when your feelings want to avoid fights. Each of these times teaches your body to stay calm and keep working when hardship is present. The important thing is to keep choice and control during these times. You are not putting yourself through random pain. You are choosing hard times on purpose for growth. This difference matters greatly. Chosen hardship builds strength. Forced pain often builds only anger. As your acceptance grows, you begin to gain what can only be called peace with hardship. You learn that the feelings you once feared and avoided are just short times that cannot really hurt you. You find that you are much tougher than you thought, much more able to bear trouble than your ease-seeking mind made you believe. This acceptance becomes your winning edge. While others run from tests that feel uneasy, you move toward them. While others need perfect conditions to do well, you do well no matter what conditions exist. While others need to feel ready before they move, you move your way into being ready. The person who can stay calm in hardship has power that goes beyond skill or talent. They can keep working when others stop. They can think clearly when others panic. They can find chances where others see only barriers. This is not about being tough for the sake of being tough. This is about knowing that every meaningful goal lies on the other side of hardship. The business you want to start will require months of worry and doubt. The relationship you want to build will demand hard talks and hurt feelings. The body you want to have will ask for sweat and tiredness. The mind you want to develop will need focus when distraction calls. Your body will tell you lies about what you can handle. It will make small hardships feel like great dangers. It will convince you that temporary discomfort means lasting harm. It will whisper that you should wait for easier times, better moods, or perfect conditions. These are the lies of a system built for a world that no longer exists. Your ancestors needed this system to survive real dangers. You need to override this system to create the life you want. The practice is simple but not easy. Each day, choose one small thing that feels uncomfortable and do it anyway. Hold eye contact longer than feels natural. Speak up when you would rather stay quiet. Exercise for 10 more minutes when you want to stop. Read when you would rather rest. Notice how your mind creates stories about why you should avoid these small hardships. Watch how it makes normal sensations feel like emergencies. Observe how it tries to convince you that comfort is more important than growth. Do the uncomfortable thing anyway, not because you enjoy it, but because you understand that your future self depends on your present willingness to be uncomfortable. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you become a little stronger, a little more capable, a little more ready for whatever challenges await. The goal is not to eliminate the desire for comfort. The goal is to become someone who can act in spite of that desire. This is the difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who only dream about achieving them. Start today. Choose discomfort. Choose growth. Choose the person you want to become over the comfort you want to feel. Your future depends on this choice, and you have the power to make it right now. In an age of constant interruption and endless streams of information, your attention has become the ultimate battleground. Every distraction, every pull on your consciousness represents a calculated assault on your cognitive resources. Yet most people surrender this precious commodity without a fight, allowing their focus to be scattered by forces that profit from their mental fragmentation. Your attention is not just valuable, it is the very foundation upon which all meaningful achievement rests. Your ability to do difficult things depends entirely on your capacity to direct and maintain your attention on what matters most. The untrained mind operates like a wild animal in constant motion, leaping frantically from thought to thought with no apparent logic or purpose. It chases every interesting distraction that appears in its field of awareness, following emotional impulses with the dedication of a bloodhound tracking a scent. This mental creature has no conception of long-term goals or sustained effort. It exists purely in the moment, focusing on whatever seems most stimulating or emotionally charged right now, rather than what might be most important for future success and fulfillment. This scattered, Reactive pattern of attention makes sustained effort on difficult tasks not just challenging, but nearly impossible to maintain. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You sit down to work on something important, perhaps a complex project, a creative endeavor, or deep learning, and within minutes your mind has wandered to check correspondence, review unfinished business, or pursue some other seemingly urgent matter. You return to your task only to find your thoughts drifting again to worries about tomorrow, memories from yesterday, or random curiosities that suddenly seem urgently important. Each time your attention fragments, you lose not only the immediate moments of focus, but also the deeper state of cognitive engagement that allows for truly productive work. The solution lies not in attempting to eliminate all distractions, an impossible task in our interconnected world, but in developing the fundamental skill of attention control. This means cultivating the ability to notice when your attention has wandered from your chosen focus and consistently bringing it back to where you want it to be. Think of it as developing mental discipline in the same way you might develop physical strength through progressive training. Just as you cannot expect to lift heavy weights without building up your muscles over time, you cannot expect to maintain focus on difficult tasks without systematically training your attention. True attention control begins with learning to work in blocks of completely undivided focus. Start by choosing a specific duration for your focused work. Perhaps 20 minutes if you are just beginning, and make an unwavering commitment to maintaining complete attention on a single task for that entire period. When your mind inevitably wanders to other thoughts, notice this wandering without judgment or self-criticism, and gently but firmly return your attention to your chosen task. When you feel the familiar urge to attend to other business, check on various concerns, or pursue some other seemingly pressing matter, acknowledge that urge is a natural part of the process and continue with your chosen work without giving in to the impulse. This practice will feel profoundly difficult at first because your brain has become thoroughly accustomed to constant stimulation and frequent task switching. Contemporary life has trained your neural pathways to expect immediate gratification of every curiosity and instant relief from any moment of boredom, difficulty, or discomfort. Your brain has learned that whenever something becomes challenging or uncomfortable, relief and distraction are readily available. Training sustained focus requires you to systematically deny these conditioned expectations and teach your mind that it can tolerate and even thrive in states of sustained concentration. The environment in which you work plays an absolutely crucial role in your ability to maintain attention control. Every object in your visual field that is not directly related to your current task represents a potential pull on your cognitive resources. Remove everything that is not necessary for your immediate work. Create a workspace that actively supports focus rather than unconsciously fragments it. This means eliminating visual clutter, removing items that might interrupt your concentration, and creating physical boundaries that signal to your brain that this is a space dedicated to deep work. Understand that every additional item within reach, every unrelated object in your peripheral vision, every potential source of distraction in your environment makes sustained attention exponentially more difficult to maintain. Your internal environment requires equal attention and care. Before beginning any session of difficult work, take deliberate time to acknowledge and consciously set aside the various concerns, plans, worries, and mental preoccupations that naturally occupy your mental space. You cannot eliminate these thoughts entirely. They are a natural part of being human, but you can make a conscious choice not to engage with them during your dedicated work periods. Think of this as clearing your mental workspace in the same way you might clear your physical desk before beginning an important project. The practice of sustained attention reveals itself most clearly when applied to intellectual pursuits that demand deep engagement. Whether reading challenging literature, solving complex mathematical problems, learning a musical instrument, or mastering a craft, the quality of your attention directly determines the quality of your results. A mind that can maintain steady focus for extended periods can penetrate depths of understanding that remain forever closed to scattered attention. As your attention control strengthens through consistent practice, You will begin to notice a remarkable transformation in your relationship with difficult tasks. Work that once seemed overwhelming or impossible becomes not only manageable, but genuinely engaging. This happens not because the tasks themselves have somehow become easier, but because you can now bring dramatically more concentrated mental energy to bear on whatever challenges you face. Problems that once scattered your thinking across multiple directions can now receive the full force of your focused attention, allowing you to penetrate their complexity and find solutions that were previously invisible to your distracted mind. The cultivation of attention control is perhaps the most important skill you can develop in our age of infinite distraction. It is the foundation upon which all other achievements rest, the prerequisite for any form of mastery, and the gateway to both productivity and deep satisfaction in your work and life. Every moment spent training your attention is an investment in your capacity to accomplish meaningful things and to experience the profound satisfaction that comes from sustained engagement with worthy challenges. The human intellect possesses remarkable ingenuity in manufacturing compelling reasons to avoid challenging endeavors. It operates as a skilled advocate, presenting seemingly rational arguments for postponement that appear entirely reasonable in the moment. The study suddenly requires reorganization before meaningful work can commence. Correspondence demands immediate attention despite being ignored for hours. That treatise on discipline becomes essential reading precisely when discipline should be applied to actual work. This phenomenon reveals profound truths about resistance itself. The mind is not merely being indolent when creating these diversions. It is actively protecting against perceived psychological threats. Difficult work involves uncertainty, potential failure, judgment from others, or confrontation with personal limitations. The mind regards these as genuine dangers requiring avoidance through any means necessary. Understanding this protective mechanism represents the first step toward mastering it. The master of mental discipline systematically closes these escape routes before beginning difficult work. One must anticipate the ways the mind will attempt sabotage and prepare countermeasures in advance. This requires developing intimate knowledge of personal patterns of avoidance. Most individuals remain unconscious of their escape mechanisms, experiencing them as spontaneous inspirations or legitimate urgencies rather than recognizing them as sophisticated forms of self-sabotage. Physical escape routes prove easiest to address. Remove or disable access to distracting activities. Place tempting books in distant rooms. Create physical barriers between yourself and easy alternatives the mind suggests when work becomes challenging. The principle remains simple, yet often overlooked. Willpower constitutes a finite resource, and every moment spent resisting temptation diverts energy from primary objectives. Consider the profound difference between working where distractions remain readily available versus environments where accessing them requires deliberate effort. When diversions sit beside you, engaging with them feels natural, almost involuntary. When placed in distant locations, the simple act of retrieval introduces friction that often breaks the spell of distraction. Mental escape routes operate with greater subtlety, but equal destructiveness. These include sudden needs for more thorough planning, additional research, workspace organization, or handling seemingly urgent but trivial tasks. The mind presents these activities as productive and necessary when they actually constitute sophisticated forms of procrastination. The insidious nature of these mental escape routes lies in their apparent legitimacy. Planning holds importance. Research provides value. Organization matters. Yet, when these activities emerge as urgent necessities, precisely when difficult work should begin, they reveal themselves as elaborate avoidance mechanisms. The key to recognizing mental escape routes lies in understanding their timing and emotional context. Genuine planning occurs during designated planning periods, not as sudden inspiration when execution should begin. Legitimate research happens as systematic investigation, not as an emergency requirement when encountering initial uncertainty. Real organization takes place during scheduled maintenance periods, not as an urgent priority that mysteriously becomes critical just as challenging work commences. The most dangerous escape routes are emotional ones. When difficult work triggers anxiety, frustration, or self-doubt, the mind suggests stopping to address these feelings first. One feels compelled to speak with someone about challenges, to write about emotions, to take time processing what is being experienced. This emotional escape route proves particularly seductive because it masquerades as psychological health and self-awareness. The feelings arising during difficult work are not problems requiring solutions, but natural consequences of engaging with meaningful challenges. Anxiety often signals engagement with something personally important. Frustration frequently indicates pushing against current capability boundaries. Self-doubt commonly emerges when attempting something that could genuinely impact life or the lives of others. These emotions are not obstacles to work. They are signs that the work holds sufficient significance to evoke meaningful response. While emotional awareness holds value, using emotional discomfort as a reason to abandon difficult work constitutes subtle self-sabotage. The appropriate response to emotional difficulty during challenging work is not cessation, but continuation while acknowledging emotions. The work itself often resolves emotional discomfort more effectively than any amount of processing or discussion. Action dissolves anxiety more reliably than analysis. Progress eliminates frustration more completely than conversation. Achievement answers self-doubt more convincingly than reassurance. Creating accountability structures makes escape more difficult. Establish commitments to others who will notice failure to follow through. Set stakes, making surrender costly. Join others engaged in similar challenges. Transform social pressure into a force supporting rather than undermining goals. The power of external accountability lies not merely in the consequences of failure, but in how it transforms your relationship with personal resistance. When others count on progress, internal negotiations change character. The voice suggesting postponement must now argue not only with personal standards, but with commitments to others. Excuses that seem perfectly reasonable when offered only to yourself suddenly appear inadequate when imagining explanation to someone whose respect matters. Accountability creates witnesses to choices, and this witnessing transforms private struggles into public commitments. Eliminating escape routes forces movement through difficulty rather than around it. When retreat becomes impossible, previously unknown resources and capabilities emerge. When escape is unavailable, necessary skills for success must develop. This forced engagement with difficulty creates the environment where genuine growth occurs. Comfort zones expand not through gentle persuasion, but through systematic removal of alternatives to growth. Most people never discover their true capabilities because they preserve escape routes, preventing full engagement with challenges. They maintain backup plans, alternative options, and exit strategies, enabling retreat when difficulty intensifies. While prudent in certain contexts, this approach prevents complete commitment, which difficult work often requires. When knowledge of possible surrender exists, part of the mind perpetually evaluates whether retreat might prove superior. When escape becomes impossible, all mental resources focus on discovering paths to success. The transformation from outcome-focused to process-focused thinking represents one of the most profound mental reorientations available to those pursuing excellence. This shift transcends mere tactical adjustment. It constitutes a complete rewiring of how consciousness engages with challenging endeavors and determines whether we approach our aspirations with clarity and sustainable momentum or anxiety and volatility. Few mental transformations prove as fundamentally liberating as this deliberate movement from fixation on results to immersion in method. Achievement-oriented individuals often fall victim to compulsive fixation on results rather than methods. This outcome-centric mindset constructs a psychological prison where anxiety flourishes and performance deteriorates. The mind operating in this mode generates relentless streams of counterproductive inquiries about success, failure, timing, and external judgment, transforming challenging work into something exponentially more difficult than its actual requirements demand. Mental energy that could fuel productive action becomes dissipated through anxious speculation about variables beyond immediate control. The consciousness that operates from a process-centered framework asks fundamentally different questions that generate entirely different psychological and practical outcomes. Rather than speculating about uncertain variables, this approach directs mental energy toward concrete actions and controllable elements. The student focuses on understanding the current concept rather than calculating acceptance odds. The entrepreneur concentrates on perfecting today's execution rather than projecting market reception. These inquiries create clarity where confusion once reigned and generate actionable momentum where paralysis once dominated. Process focus requires complete commitment to the activity immediately present, without emotional attachment to predetermined results. This represents a profound philosophical shift where attention becomes fully invested in crafting the next sentence, completing the current repetition, or mastering the present lesson. Such reorientation eliminates performance anxiety, reduces emotional volatility, and creates the psychological conditions where difficult work transforms from stress into an absorbing, meditative experience. In these states, the boundary between self and activity dissolves, and what once felt like struggle becomes effortless engagement. When emotional well-being depends on specific outcomes, every inevitable setback registers as personal failure, triggering discouragement that can derail entire endeavors. However, when attention remains anchored in process, these same setbacks transform into valuable information that enhances approach and accelerates improvement. Mistakes cease being sources of shame and instead become stepping stones toward mastery. This transformation creates a foundation for sustainable, long-term engagement with challenging work, maintaining steady momentum even during inevitable plateaus. Under outcome-focused thinking, challenges become threats to ultimate success, generating resistance and avoidance behaviors that actually impede progress. Under process-focused thinking, these same challenges become interesting problems to solve, opportunities to develop resilience and skill. The work itself becomes intrinsically rewarding rather than merely instrumental toward distant goals, creating sustainable engagement even during extended periods of slow, visible progress. Difficulties cease to be sources of discouragement and instead become opportunities for growth and refinement. Developing consistent process focus requires intentional practice and vigilant attention to mental habits. This involves training automatic responses to redirect attention from results to current action whenever anxiety emerges. When overwhelm arises from contemplating ambitious goals, the approach involves deliberately narrowing focus to immediate manageable steps. When discouragement surfaces from apparently slow progress, consciousness must remind itself that consistency and execution represent the only reliable creators of lasting results. This redirection must be swift and complete, catching outcome-focused thoughts before they generate emotional turbulence. Critics sometimes misinterpret process focus as lowering standards or abandoning ambition, fundamentally misunderstanding the relationship between method and result. Process focus represents the most reliable path toward exceptional achievement rather than retreat from excellence. The greatest practitioners throughout history have understood this principle, dedicating themselves to perfecting daily practices rather than constantly measuring against ultimate aspirations. They recognize that outcomes are emergent properties of sustained process excellence. The paradox of high performance reveals that extraordinary results emerge most consistently when we temporarily suspend attachment to those results. The shift from outcome to process thinking constitutes a fundamental redefinition of what it means to pursue excellence. Rather than viewing difficult work as necessary suffering endured to achieve desired results, process focus transforms that same work into intrinsically meaningful activity worthy of complete engagement. This transformation affects both performance and life satisfaction, creating individuals whose motivation no longer depends on external validation or immediate progress. The work itself provides satisfaction and energy for continuation. When fulfillment emerges from the process itself, practitioners become virtually unstoppable because their relationship with the work provides the energy needed for continuation through any obstacle. Understanding that the most reliable path to exceptional outcomes lies in exceptional commitment to the processes that create those outcomes represents one of the most valuable insights available to anyone serious about achievement and personal development. It transforms not merely results, but the entire experience of pursuing meaningful goals. In this understanding lies the key to sustainable excellence and profound satisfaction. The biggest changes in how people act happen not by changing what they do on the outside, but by changing who they think they are on the inside. This deepest kind of change happens in your sense of identity. where your most basic ideas about your character, what you can do, and your nature lie. Understanding this idea represents a complete shift from old ways of improving yourself that focus mainly on changing outside behaviors without dealing with the inner story that drives them. Most people trying to create change in their lives face a basic problem that ruins their efforts before they even start. They try to force themselves into behaviors that need discipline, courage, staying power, or strength, while at the same time keeping an identity that sees itself as lazy, fearful, inconsistent, or weak. This inner fight creates a mental tension that makes lasting change nearly impossible. When someone believes deep down that they are undisciplined, every attempt to act with discipline feels like swimming against a strong current. They may succeed for a while through pure willpower, but eventually their actions will drift back toward matching their self-image, because our behaviors naturally match our beliefs about who we are. The life-changing insight that changes everything is recognizing that identity is not a fixed, unchangeable trait determined by your genes, past experiences, or current situation. Your identity is not carved in stone by your history of failures, your natural tendencies toward certain behaviors, or the situation you currently find yourself in. Instead, your identity exists as a moving, changeable story that you continuously tell yourself about who you are. This story, regardless of how long you have believed it or how deeply rooted it feels, can be completely rewritten through the powerful method of consistent action that goes against your existing story. Every single time you choose to do a difficult behavior that goes against your current self-image, you are essentially casting a vote in an ongoing election for who you will become. This comparison to voting is particularly powerful because it captures both the individual importance of each action and the building effect of repeated choices over time. When you force yourself to wake up early despite every part of your being wanting to stay in bed, you are voting for an identity that values discipline over immediate comfort. When you put on your shoes and exercise despite feeling tired, unmotivated, or short on time, you are casting a ballot for someone who puts long-term health and energy over momentary ease. When you sit down to work on important projects, despite feeling uninspired, distracted, or overwhelmed, you are voting for an identity that honors commitments and responsibilities, regardless of changing emotions or circumstances. The power of this voting system lies not in any single dramatic act, but in the building up of small, consistent actions that gradually tip the scales of your self-perception. You cannot expect to transform your entire self-image through one heroic act or a week of intense effort. Identity change works more like compound interest than like winning a lottery, building momentum slowly but steadily through repeated deposits of evidence that support your emerging sense of self. The practical use of identity-based change begins with a clear, specific definition of the type of person you want to become. This requires shifting focus from outside achievements to inner character traits. Instead of asking what you want to accomplish, ask who you want to be. The difference is crucial because achievements are temporary and external, while identity is permanent and internal. Do you want to become someone who consistently follows through on commitments regardless of how difficult or inconvenient they become? Do you want to be the type of person who faces challenges directly rather than avoiding them? Do you want to embody someone who maintains calm and clarity under pressure? Do you want to be someone who approaches life with curiosity and continuously seeks to learn and grow? Once you have clearly stated the identity you wish to develop, the next step involves identifying specific, small, daily actions that such a person would naturally take. This is where the abstract concept of identity meets the concrete reality of behavior. A disciplined person would wake up at a consistent time every day, not just when they feel like it or when circumstances are convenient. A committed person would work on their most important project first each morning when their mental energy is fresh, rather than putting it off until later when motivation might fade. A resilient person would exercise regularly regardless of how they feel, weather conditions, or competing priorities, because physical strength supports mental toughness. These actions must be deliberately designed to be small enough that you can perform them consistently, even on your most challenging days. The temptation is to set ambitious goals that would impress others or provide immediate satisfaction, but this approach often fails because it cannot be sustained during difficult periods. The true goal is not to impress anyone with the size of your efforts, but rather to systematically reinforce your new identity through repeated evidence that contradicts your old story about yourself. Each small action serves as proof that you are capable of being the person you want to become. As you begin to build up substantial evidence of your new identity through consistent small actions, something remarkable and almost magical happens in your mental landscape. Difficult actions that once required enormous willpower and internal struggle begin to feel easier and more natural because they align with your evolving sense of who you are. You stop having to force yourself to do challenging things because challenging things simply become what you do as a natural expression of your character. They transform from violations of your nature into authentic expressions of your identity. This transformation represents the ultimate goal of identity-based change, reaching a point where positive behaviors flow naturally from who you believe yourself to be, rather than fighting against your self-concept through constant internal struggle. This approach to change is both more sustainable and more profound than traditional behavior modification techniques because it addresses the root cause rather than just the symptoms. When your actions align with your identity, you have created a self-reinforcing system where each positive choice strengthens your self-concept, which in turn makes future positive choices easier and more likely. You have essentially reprogrammed the fundamental operating system of your personality, creating lasting transformation from the inside out. The last important rule for making your mind do difficult tasks is learning how to use the power of forward movement. This idea might be the most important part of growing as a person, but many people do not understand it well. Every action you take either helps you move toward your dreams or pushes you away from them. Every choice either makes the next good choice easier or harder. Every day either makes you stronger or weaker. Most people do not understand how real change happens in their lives. They think too little about small daily actions and too much about doing everything perfectly. This wrong thinking creates a pattern where they put things off and feel disappointed, keeping them stuck in ordinary ways of living. They wait for everything to be just right before they start changing, looking for the perfect day to begin, the start of a new season, or waiting until their problems go away. When these perfect times finally come, they start working with too much energy that they cannot keep up, and they give up as soon as something goes wrong or becomes difficult. This way of thinking comes from movies where people change completely in short scenes with exciting music. In real life, lasting change happens by making many small, good choices every day. While they focus on big, dramatic changes and sudden breakthroughs, they ignore the everyday habits that actually create lasting change. They want extraordinary things while ignoring the ordinary actions that build extraordinary lives. Forward movement grows through doing things regularly, not through working very hard sometimes. This idea challenges our love of extreme efforts and big dramatic actions. The person who spends 30 minutes every day on their most important work will accomplish much more than the person who works very hard for 6 hours once each week. The person who exercises a little bit every single day will become stronger and healthier than the person who exercises very hard twice each month before getting tired and stopping completely. This surprising truth exists because forward movement works through effects that build on each other, staying hidden for a short time, but becoming clear over long periods. Each day you keep your discipline, you create pathways in your mind that make keeping discipline easier the next day. Each time you push through your inner resistance, you actually change your brain to feel less resistance in the future. Each time you choose long-term benefits over short-term comfort, you strengthen the mental structure that makes such choices more automatic and easy. The building nature of forward movement means that small differences in daily behavior create huge differences in long-term results. This mathematical truth explains why some people achieve extraordinary results, while others who seem equally talented and motivated struggle with ordinary outcomes. The gap between those who regularly do difficult but helpful activities and those who avoid them appears very small at first, but grows enormously over time. Think about two people with the same starting point, one who reads for 20 minutes daily and another who reads for 3 hours every few weeks. After a year, the daily reader will have read dozens of books and built a strong foundation of knowledge, while the occasional reader will have finished perhaps a few books and remembered little of what they read. The daily reader has also strengthened their ability to focus, developed a reading habit that feels natural and enjoyable, and created forward movement that makes continuing easy. On the other hand, every day you give in to resistance. You make the following days more challenging. Every time you choose immediate comfort over long-term growth, you strengthen the patterns in your mind that will hurt your future efforts. Every decision to delay important but difficult work makes that work feel more frightening when you finally approach it. The building effect works in both directions, either making you stronger or weaker with each passing day. To use forward movement well, you must protect it with care that shows deep respect. This protection requires keeping your systems and promises even when you do not feel motivated or inspired, especially when you do not feel like it. Motivation comes and goes and cannot be trusted. Forward movement builds through action taken when you do not feel motivated. The days when you least want to do your difficult tasks are exactly the days when doing them builds the most forward movement. This means treating small promises to yourself with the same seriousness you would treat promises to others. If you promised a friend you would meet them for tea, you would not cancel because you felt unmotivated. Yet people regularly break promises to themselves based on temporary feelings. Understanding that there are no neutral days changes how you approach each 24-hour period. Every day either builds forward movement or breaks it, making each day a critical decision point in the direction of your life. The master of forward movement also understands the vital importance of rest and renewal. Sustainable forward movement is not about keeping constant maximum effort, which leads certainly to exhaustion and the complete destruction of the forward movement you work to build. Instead, it involves consistent, appropriate effort balanced with periods of rest that prevent tiredness and maintain long-term capacity. This balance requires wisdom and self-knowledge. It means working at a pace you can maintain forever, rather than running at full speed until you collapse. It means building rest and recovery into your systems, rather than seeing them as signs of weakness or failure. The goal is to create a sustainable rhythm that you can maintain for years or decades, not a frantic pace that burns bright and dies quickly. You become the person who can force their mind to do difficult things, not through a single act of heroic willpower, but through the accumulated effect of thousands of small decisions to choose growth over comfort, action over avoidance, discipline over ease. Each choice builds the pathways in your mind, strengthens your identity, and creates the forward movement that makes the next choice easier and more natural. This process represents true mastery, not the ability to occasionally overcome your mind's resistance through pure force of will, but the development of a way of being where doing difficult things becomes as natural and automatic as breathing, where challenge changes from something you must force yourself to face into something you naturally move toward, because it has become part of how you have trained yourself to live. The human mind has remarkable ability to change and can be trained, rewired, and improved throughout your lifetime. Resistance can be systematically overcome through consistent practice. Activities that once seemed impossibly difficult can become routine through patient, persistent effort. The person you are today represents just one version of who you could become, not a fixed identity you must carry forever. Through consistent use of forward movement principles, you can transform not only what you do, but fundamentally who you are. You can grow into someone for whom doing hard things is not actually hard at all. It simply becomes an expression of your identity, as natural and unconscious as any other aspect of your personality. This transformation represents the ultimate victory, converting what was once your greatest weakness into your greatest strength, and discovering that the person capable of extraordinary things was inside you all along, waiting to be developed through the power of forward movement.